Indonesia has various cultures from its local ethnics. Each region has its different characteristics. Madiun is a city located in East Java. Its motto as Kota Gadis, Perdagangan, Pendidikan, dan Perindustrian, Universitas PGRI Madiun (Unipma) plays a major role to develop the quality of education both nationally and internationally. Universitas PGRI Madiun (Unipma) has achieved some awards, winning the awards of Top University Aku from Cooperative 7, getting institution accreditation B, winning national competition grants, and many more. Unipma has 2 postgraduate programs and 4 faculties for undergraduate program with 22 departments. Postgraduate program, Indonesian language and literature education, and social science education. Undergraduate programs, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Faculty of Health Sciences and Science, Faculty of Engineering, and Faculty of Economics and Business. To support students' activities and develop students' talents and creativities, there are also some students' activity centers: choir, band, theater, modern and traditional dance, karate, student regiment, and scout. In encouraging the smart and competitive alumni, Unipma also provides representative facilities, convenient classrooms, Campus 1, Campus 2, Campus 3, library, laboratories, micro-teaching and computer, sports center, language and culture center, Graha Cendekia, dormitory, gamelan room. Universitas PGRI Madiun (Unipma) commits to give learning-oriented education and student independence to develop their abilities and skills by organizing some activities such as national and international seminars.
Universitas PGRI Madiun, smart and competitive.
Unipma, smart and competitive.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you that this webinar is about to begin in 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to remind you that this event is about to begin, so you may check your connection once again to avoid any connection loss during the presentation. Thank you. Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Dwi Setyadi MM and also all presenter and participant in this event today. I would like to welcome you once again to the second international conference on education and technology by Universitas PGRI Madiun, themed in search on STEM-based education and technology during COVID-19 pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you of the rules this event today. For the question and answer session, if you have a question, please type your name, your institution, and also your question in the chat room later. There will be 2 sessions, and I will be picking only the first 3 questions for each session. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker for this parallel session is Dr. Dwi Setyadi MM from Universitas PGRI Madiun. He was born in Wonosobo in 1964. And was studying English literature for his bachelor degree at Universitas Diponegoro Semarang. He obtained his 2nd and 3rd degree in Universitas Satyagama Jakarta, focusing on business management, and Universitas 11 Maret Surakarta, focusing on linguistics. He has been dedicating his work in Universitas PGRI Madiun since 1990 until now, and has done a lot of research and published articles covering education, linguistics, translation, and interdisciplinary study. Some of his work is titled English for Midwifery Textbook Development by Contextual Teaching and Learning Approach at Midwifery Study Programs of Polytechnic Health Ministry throughout East Java. And also there is Linguistic Attitude of Students and Lecturers of ICETECH PGRI Madiun, a study on the value of character building. And today, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dwi Setyadi will be presenting to you another one of his research titled Analysisapraxia of Speech Suffered by Three Sisters, a Neurolinguistic Study. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Dwi Setyadi to begin his presentation. Sir, you have 30 minutes to your presentation and you may begin now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you that you have already come in our room to discuss about one thing that is light and simple, I think, but it will be a warm discussion, I hope. Thank you special for Professor Ziro Jima. I hope that we can join research in the near future. Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. And thank you also for the audience. Okay, then let me share. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to discuss about very little things and very simple evidence that we encounter in daily life. That is a little analysis about apraxia of speech suffered by three sisters, a neurolinguistic study. Okay, introduction. We know that all normal human beings can talk. All normal human beings speak at least one language to communicate with. That human beings and language cannot be separated to each other. And that's why sometimes that language is called as species specific. Here, then, if all normal human beings can speak and no other primate that can use a language like human being. And that's why language becomes species specific. It means that language is specific, predisposed to use by human being. In the long debate about the nature of language for human beings, that is called as the nurture controversy. There's a discussions about the nature of language for human being. We have two schools that believes that the first school believe that language is nature gift because all normal human being can talk and no other primate that can use language like human being. And that's why this school called then language is nature or natural for human being. But other school believe that language is only something to learn, something to be learned, like we learn to play guitar, like we learn to play tennis and something like that. And also language. So it becomes a long debate about the nature of human language. But now what we are going to discuss is not about the debate, but the evidence that language is possessed by human being to communicate with. That is the reality that we make use of language in everyday living conversations, that language become very familiar to us all. And that's why sometimes we do not think about language because it is very familiar to us all. Like when we breathe, it's very familiar to breathe, then we never think about our breath. Also language. But if we have a look further about the use of language for human being, it will be a very interesting discussions, of course. Then the second premise is that language ability develops in line with the child development from 0 year up to approximately 4 years of age to complete all of the language systems of the mother tongue. We know that there are some stages to cover the language, like babbling stage, tata, mama, nana, a baby usually produce babbling like this. And then later, what is called as the naming stage, producing one word, utterance, that is meaningful. And then go to holophrastic structure of language that consists of 2 or more words. Then telegraphic language that consists of 1 subject and 1 verb, then full sentence. Then the children of 4 years of age will complete the stages of language acquisition. Right. Then speech involves not only muscle activities, but also the works of hemisphere in the brain. You know that the ability to speak does not only a matter of the muscle activities in the mouth, but also other parts of human body that support the ability of the language skill for human being. We know that naturally human being is equipped with some apparatus like lung. The human lungs is very specific rather than other primates that can be managed to produce language. Then the mouth of human beings is very specific, and the way that we can produce language by the existence of our mouth. That is different from the mouth of other primate that is difficult to produce a language. Then brain, that is the most important thing here that we are going to discuss. Brain consists of hemisphere and the cortex that contribute the controls of the language ability for human being. Then here we are going to discuss about the apraxia that takes place on 3 sisters. Evidently, human speech can experience disorder. That is common, right? That something can experience disorder. Then human speech can also experience disorder. Analysisapraxia of speech is speech disorder, which is such brain has difficulty in coordinating the complex oral movement needed to create sounds into syllables, syllables into words, and words into phrases and something like that. Typically, muscle weakness is not to blame for this speech disorder. Again, muscle weakness is not the only the only thing that is to blame in terms of the apraxia case, right? Usually apraxia takes place on childhood and can be recovered by a special training. But what we are going to discuss is that apraxia that takes place for 3 adults and their sisters. Then we are going to discuss later on. Discussions have dealt with childhood apraxia along with the children's language development, where their speech cannot be easily understood. There have been many research that discuss about apraxia in relations to children's language development. And our discussions here become very specific because the apraxia of this observation is suffered by 3 mothers of sisters. They are mothers and they are sisters in a family at the same time. They suffered from what is called as acquired apraxia of speech. Then what calls for our curiosity in this species that how comes that it happened for adults? There must be something wrong. And the 3 sisters suffered apraxia. Why does it happen on 3 sisters in a family? It is very rare that this case takes place in a family and 3 sisters again. That is very rare, of course, and that's why it's become a very interesting case to discuss together. And then whatever types of speech disorder produced by them, later on we will show, and then we can discuss about everything. Okay. Then the problems of our study is what the types of speech productions of the 3 sisters' mother. What are the contexts of the apraxia, and what are the meanings of the speech produced by the subject. By this research problem, we hope that the curiosity that we have already passed before, we can have answer by checking, by searching the data, by searching the evidence. Then we will find the answer. Why is it so? Then the curiosity will be answered later on. Then this is our finding and discussion. The types of speech production error. Theoretically, we have 15 types of the speech production error that are phonemic anticipatory error, like clean glass become green, for green grass. Phonemic preservative error, like pep for pet. Phonemic transposition error, like Arifka for Africa. Phonemic voicing error, like a pen for pen. Phonemic vowel error, like moon for men. Then visible audible searching. Then numerous of target attempts at the word or truque. Then errors are highly inconsistent. The increase of phonemic sequence increases. A few errors with automatic speech than volitional speech. Then marked difficulty initiating speech. Schwa sound between syllable or in consonant cluster. Schwa consonants or vowel that interfere between syllable or between word. Abnormal prosodic feature, awareness of errors and ability to correct them. Then the last, expressive perspective gap. That is the types of the error theoretically. And then we apply to the research and we try to find out the answer, which one that takes place only 3 sisters. Then we find out the data like this. Then according to the data that we have already noted, apraxic speech produced by 3 sisters are almost identical. So they produce almost the same error in evidence. The similarity is that a phonemic perseverative error, a phonemic transposition error, numerous of target attempts at word, fewer error with automatic speech than volitional speech, awareness of error, and ability to correct them, highly inconsistent. That is the similarity of the data that drawn from the 3 sisters at the same time. And we find 2 differences, that are phonemic anticipatory error and phonemic vowel error. Apraxis error that they do not exhibit. We have a phonemic voicing, a visible audible switching, introduce schwa sounds between syllable or in consonants cluster, abnormal prosodic feature, and expressive reflexive depth. That are the error that we did not find during the survey. Note that the apraxic error produced by 3 sisters tend to be inconsistent in the different times and events. They exhibit the error that cannot be predicted when or what event they produce the error. Sometimes they found some word easy to pronounce, but sometimes they found a difficulty to pronounce the same word in different times and a different event. They did not actually want the error to happen for them, but they could not control them. It can be seen by the repetitions that they try to do in everyday living conversations. The error did not interfere the fluency of communications, both among the 3 sisters and among others in the community. So the communications, the meanings of the apraxis error can be interpreted by the interlocutor, by the participants of the speech in everyday living conversations. Then the context of apraxic speech. We try to draw the context where the apraxic speech takes place. We find 3 contexts. The first one is genetic aspects of the subject. The genetic aspects has become the dominant cause of the apraxic speech, where the 3 sisters were born from a mother, from the same mother who has a brain disorder due to an accident in the past before they delivered the 3 sisters. Then the 3 sisters inherit the disorder from the mother. Then the second one is the psychological context that we found out. The psychological status of the subjects also contribute the apraxic speech. The more strained conditions of the speech, the more apraxic speech are produced. Because speech includes a mental process in the minds of the speaker, disturbance in the mind affects error of linguistic system. For example, strange, we have relaxed, sad, we have happy, tranquil, we have in a hurry, and so forth. May also affect the speech productions. We need more research for this. Then the social context, according to the finding, that the people surrounding the subjects have also played certain roles in the productions of apraxic speech. The actions of the people around the subjects have significant contributions against the productions of apraxic speech. The actions can be subdivided into resistance and hindrance toward the subject to produce a linguistic system fluently. Interference or corrections, blames against the error even discourage the subject to produce a good linguistic system. This is what is called by Nakata Hiroshi as evaluation procedure, where the role of the society surrounding the participant will be very important. That affects the production of speech by a certain participant. That is called the evaluation procedure. So there must be language one, so hypothesis one. Then they try to the environment, and the reactions of the environment will determine the process of linguistic ability later on. That is built up by the participant. If they accept the hypothesis speech, then they go on the speech into grammar, into good speech. But if the environment refuses, then the participant will get back to the hypothesis one to go to hypothesis two, and so on and so on. That is what is called as the evaluation procedure by Nakata Hiroshi. Okay, principally, the roles of the society among us will be very important to build up a good grammatical system, but not what is meant by good is that acceptable by the environment. Then the meanings of apraxic speech, that is the data that we can summarize from the subject from Indonesian language, I think. Then out of the productions of the apraxics by the subject, the meanings of the apraxic speech did not encounter serious problems, especially in the daily communication. The supports of the people around the subjects again played an important role in the communication process. They held the communication without protesting the errors. Along the way, they understand the meaning. The meanings of the individual word and sentence was of course interfered by the frames of apraxic speech. 90% of them can be formulated easily, and 20% of the apraxic word in individual or sentence were difficult to compose. But the context have the meaning formulations by the participants of the communications. Conclusions. The types of apraxic speech produced by the subject consist of 8 out of 15 types of error, whether in the forms of the word and sentences. The context of apraxic speech cover genetic, psychological, and the social context. The social context, along with the involvement of the subjects in telecommunications in the society, plays a very significant role to develop the language fluency in the communication. Thank you. That is a very little and simple topic of our discussions. I hope that it can be developed into more valuable and qualitative and qualified research and finding. Thank you. And I give the opportunity back to the MC, please.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dwi Setyadi, for the remarkable presentation of analysis of apraxia of speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to move forward to the question and answer session. Once again, I would like to remind you, if you have a question for Dr. Dwi Setyadi regarding to his presentation on analysis of apraxia of speech, please state your name, your institution, and your question in the chat box.
Professor Shirojima, please, Prof.
Yes, thank you very much for the very interesting data. I have one question. So these three sisters from the same family, so they have apraxia of speech, and I thought the data was very interesting, and I want to know more about their intelligence. Maybe you talked about their intelligence, but I probably missed it. So if you have any information about their general intelligence, you know, whether they have any learning difficulty, whether, you know, they can live a normal life on their own, whether they have other like non-linguistic problems. So do they have any problems with their general intelligence outside the linguistic domain? Do you have any data about that?
Thank you, Prof. Shirojima. It's very interesting. So thank you for the questions. Actually, we did not acquire the data about the intelligence. We did not measure, but what we found out that they were not sent to school. So they stay at home. They were not sent to school. Then the parents said that they shy to send the children to school. This will be, of course, the mistakes, of course, for the parent to be shy, but that is the reality. But we did not measure the intelligence of Shirojima.
Oh, okay.
We hope that we can develop research together with you, Prof. Shirojima. We hope very much.
Yeah. Okay. Please give me email then. Yeah. So because you talked about the nature and nurture argument at the beginning of your talk, and one interesting issue is whether we have this natural ability, specific ability to acquire language, which is specific to language and which is domain specific, not domain general. So I think what seems to be interesting here is the possibility that these three sisters have a linguistic problem, but not other problems. But we are not sure because you said you didn't acquire any data about intelligence. But I think this is one area where you can conduct further research. So is the problem specific to language, or is the problem more general? I think this is a very, very interesting issue.
Yes, and discussion about the nature and nurture, what is called as the nature-nurture controversy. I think, for my own opinion, that nature and nurture both support each other. In one side, we have the natural equipment in our body that is nature gave to have the ability to acquire a language. That is a nature gift, of course, from the lung, then mouth, brain is a natural gift. Then we have also nurture in the other side, because the linguistic data must be learned, not as acquired automatically. So we have to learn the linguistic data, the linguistic systems of language, of course. Okay, thank you, Prof. Chirujima.
Okay, sir, there is a question coming from Ranek of ISPC. The next question is, were you able to identify how they cope with or address their speech production errors? Thank you.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
So were you able to identify how they cope with or address their speech production errors? That's the question, sir.
Okay. Yes, and thank you. From who?
Ranek of ISPSC, sir.
Ranek.
Yes.
ISPSC. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ranek. We get the data of a speech error by observation, of course. We go we went to the subject's house for several days, coping with the data about the apraxic speech with certain types of theory, of course, or types of the apraxic speech that we were going to draw from the subject, and then we try to record and then try to interview the parent and also the subject, and then we got the data about the apraxic speech. And from the daily behavior of the subject, really they exhibit such apraxic speech when we encounter an evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is another question coming from Dr. Bell Francisco from ISPC again, sir. So she wants you to kindly share your methodology, especially on how you gathered the data on the phonological errors, or if you use any standardized tool for the data also, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Annabelle. Good afternoon. Yeah, I hope we can join together later on in the near future. Okay, Dr. Annabelle, I didn't show the method of a research, and the method of the research I take is the natural research, that we go to the subject's place and we stay there for several times, and then we try to make a record. We have a checklist also, field note to record the data from the subject. And also we prepared the interview protocol to have some interview from the informations from the surroundings of the subject. Okay, thank you, Dr. Annabelle.
Thank you, sir. Now for the second session, there is already one question coming from Dr. Carmen Cruzata from ICETECH University, Philippines, sir. Yeah, the question is, they would like to ask if apraxia is hereditary and if it is treatable. Thank you,
sir. Okay. It's very difficult for me, of course, the question. If the case is hereditary, can we treat, can we recover the case of the apraxia? I think what is hereditary problem cannot even be managed, cannot even be treated well by training and something like that, because the error is in the brain. So what training and treatment can only minimize the error. For example, the stages of speech and something like that, and then we can train, but we cannot even we can recover 100%, I think, because it is hereditary. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. If there is another who wants to ask a question, there is still 2 slots for the question. You may raise your hands or write down the name, the institution, and also the question in the chat room.
Okay, yes, please. Whatever.
Okay, if there's no more questions.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Dwi. I really enjoyed listening to your discussion. It's very interesting, and we would like to have a collaborative research with you along this line. We have faculty members who are majors in linguistics, and I think they will be very interested to have a collaborative research with you. One of them actually is here in the person of Dr. Rene Azarias. He is in the room, sir.
Yes, okay. I will be very pleased, Dr. Annabelle, if you would like to join the research together with one on linguistics.
Yes,
and
sir.
Specifically psycholinguistics also. Yes,
yes,
we can go on in the programs of faculty movement.
Yes, sir. We will ask Ibu Agita for a meeting with you.
Agita, yes.
Yeah, for a meeting with you. However, sir, my question is, because you said in your findings a while back that I think social interaction plays a very positive role on how a person with this kind of disease, if you may call it, can eventually enhance his or her speech development. My question is, can you give some possible interventions which we could provide as educators to students, for example, or members of our community who are suffering from this kind of circumstances. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Annabelle, thank you. There have been many research, Dr. Annabelle, that proposes about the treatment of the apraxic speech, but most of them, the treatment is for children, right? It's for children. And it is very rare that the treatment is given to adults. And that's why it is our discussion is a bit specific, because our discussion is for adults. Evidence show that the treatment and also training for apraxics can develop the linguistic ability of children. But for the case of that I have delivered, I cannot show any betterments of the treatment. But the functions of the society, the functions of the environment is to support the communications so that the communications run well. That is the functions of the communities around the subject, to build up the conducive situations to enhance the communications. I think that is the functions of the environment, but not to train to a betterment of the linguistic ability, as we find in data. Dr. Annabelle.
Thank you, Dr. Dwi.
Yes, we go on to research.
Yes. Together. ICETECH and UNIPMA, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Sirojima, Dr. Anek, Dr. Annabelle, and Dr. Carmen for the question. We still have one slot of the question. If there's anyone who wants to ask Dr. Dwi about his research. He's still accepting one question. Okay, if there is no more question, then I will be closing the session today. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dwi Setyadi has delivered to you Analysis of Apraxia of Speech Suffered by Three Sisters, a Neurolinguistic Study. First of all, thank you, Dr. Dwi Setyadi, for answering all of the questions given by Professor Sirojima, Dr. Carmen, Dr. Anek, and also Dr. Annabelle. Now, hello? Oh, I'm sorry. The microphone is... Okay, so if there is no more questions, I would like to close the session for today. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you, Dr. Dwi Setyadi, for answering all of the questions given by Professor Sirojima, Dr. Anek, Dr. Annabelle, and also Dr. Carmen. And thank you to all of the professor and doctors who has given the question for Dr. Dwi Setyadi today. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dwi Setyadi has delivered to you Analysis of Apraxia of Speech Suffered by Three Sisters, a Neurolinguistic Study focusing in three research problems, namely the types of speech production of the three sister mothers. The second is the context of the apraxia, and the third is the meanings of speech produced by the subjects. Now, ladies and gentlemen, by the end of the presentation, it was found that the subjects carries out 7 out of 15 types of apraxic speech, which found whether in the forms of words and also sentences. The context of apraxic speech found in the research covering genetic, psychological, and also social context of the speech. Lastly, this research, we also found out that the meanings of speech produced by the subject is depending on the social context, along with the involvement of the subject in daily communication in the society. So it helped to compose the meaning of the aphoristic word or sentences. Ladies and gentlemen, we have also discussed with all of the participants that has already give Dr. Dwi Setyadi questions. We discussed about if there are any data on general intelligence, and we found out later that the data from Dr. Dwi Setyadi is not about the general intelligence, but instead we are getting that the subject is not sent to school by the parents. And later we also discussed about the methodology of this research, which is by recording, observation, interview, and also field notes while taking the notes with the subjects. And we also find out that once again, social interaction have a very positive role in enhancing the speech development within the subject or within the community in general, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, that marks the end of this parallel session. I would like to thank once again Dr. Dwi Setyadi and all of the participants, and also Professor Sirojima, Dr. Annabelle, Dr. Anek, and Dr. Carmen for giving the question for today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the second International Conference on Education and Technology by Universitas PGRI Madiun. I hope this conference will be useful and beneficial for you. Thank you once again. I wish you to have a good afternoon, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you too. Bye-bye.
Hey, ma'am.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you, ma'am.